All right, now we're going to actually start going back to the handout per se, not so much the PowerPoint spot. Roman numeral 2, Alzheimer's disease biomedical research. So I'm going to kind of share with you some ideas. Hopefully you came up with some ideas of what you might do. So we're going to have kind of 3 categories of things. Things kind of hot off the press right now, as well as hot off the press that aren't so new anymore, that haven't worked out. Then we're going to talk about current medicines that are actually used and kind of go through that as the basics here. So hot off the press, probably the first thing that a lot of people often identify as far as an intervention here biomedically is if we could actually stop this amyloid precursor protein from being cut by beta and gamma secretase. That would really be a wonderful thing. So if you look at the slides, it's products that are actually called BACE inhibitors. So a BACE inhibitor is a product that basically will block the beta and gamma secretases from cutting amyloid precursor protein to this beta peptide. Now I know that sounds pretty simple as far as idea. There's nothing simple about it. It's very complicated work. We've actually had a couple of products almost come to market, but they actually haven't made it. They've stopped at phase 2 clinical trials due to side effects and so forth. The biggest one that's kind of hot off the market now, that's kind of in phase 3 clinical trials, so they're doing a big clinical trial of lots of people at many centers, is a product by Merck, MK. It's called MK8931. And if you look at the abstract in the handout, the idea is it blocks beta secretase. So the idea is if you could block beta secretase, then maybe you could stop amyloid precursor protein to forming amyloid beta peptide and stop the plaques in the brain. So they're trying that out. It's worked very well in phase 1 and phase 2. There's some other candidates out there that they're not nearly as far as long as this particular one. So obviously if they could come up with this one, that could really stop things before it gets started, and that would really help a lot of people out. And of course it would make the pharmaceutical a few pennies as well. So that's the latest and greatest from some of these Alzheimer's disease research centers that are doing all these studies, such as places like UVA. A second idea that hasn't worked out so well is, can we actually give products that actually stop the amyloid from forming? So the plaques form in the brain and the amyloid just starts spreading all over the place. About 3 or 4 years ago, there was a whole lot of hope about products that could block the amyloid formation. You've got an abstract on that. Unfortunately, what has happened to a lot of those, as has been the case for many years with Alzheimer's disease, if you read right below, it said Pfizer has decided not to pursue it further because late-stage trials, phase 2 and 3, doesn't look like it worked any better than placebo. So this is often the case for Alzheimer's disease. Things look promising and they try it, and then it just doesn't quite pan out. So that's another idea, and there was a few other products there. You don't need to worry about those too well. Quite a few other ideas historically that have been looked at that actually haven't fared too well either. One idea is, you noticed in the pathology, they talked about inflammation. Well, we have a lot of products out there that could actually work with inflammation. So if we maybe block inflammation with non-steroidals, maybe that would be useful. Well, I copied an abstract from a Cochrane database review. Cochrane reviews at the highest level. They look at lots of studies. And if you read on the very bottom of that study, it doesn't look like they can really be of any value. They couldn't maybe hurt things, but it doesn't look like they're really going to be very good here. So the non-steroidals don't appear to be doing much. If you go down to the next one, number 3, there was big hope at some point, quite a few years ago, that estrogen, the idea of going through menopause and then getting hormone replacement therapy, maybe hormone replacement therapy could really help people because in the limbic system there are a lot of estrogen receptors. So the idea of helping out with estrogen, maybe helping out with Alzheimer's disease. If you look at this particular abstract, you can see the results were actually quite disastrous. They actually had to stop the clinical trial because women were actually having so many troubles with the estrogen that they were given after menopause. So estrogen does not appear to be the answer. Next on the hit parade, we talked about this idea of amyloid once again and having too much cholesterol. Remember I told you that apolipoprotein E4 is related to cholesterol? Well, the idea of having statins. But once again, looked kind of like a good idea, and they did a big study, and it doesn't look like there is really sufficient evidence to recommend statins as well. So that one really didn't work out either. If you go down the hit parade, notice the title of the journal from number 5 here with the blueberries, Rejuvenation Research. So maybe not the biggest peer-reviewed type of research here. One of the other ideas, though, was maybe blueberries would help. Blueberries and other antioxidants, if you could stop that process, maybe that would help prevent amyloid formation. So all we've got is an abstract from a few years ago saying that, yeah, in animals it looked kind of promising. I think they were using rats here or something, but really not much research going on with humans. About the only thing we can say about this alternative medicine is that the companies that make blueberries are very happy to tout these products as actually potentially being useful, but the data just doesn't really suggest it. It's kind of almost the best they can say is it couldn't harm things. And then finally, ginkgo biloba. People sometimes take that for cognitive impairments. Here's another Cochrane database review a few years ago. If you look at the bottom of this, 36 trials, appears to be safe in use with no side effects. They didn't look at any beneficial effects. It doesn't seem that you've really got very much here. So unfortunately, these clinical trials don't necessarily show that much as far as helping people out per se. I'm going to stop the tape here.